Hi, Ann Cornick from Paintnporcelain. I'm here to help beginners learn how to China paint and also to work with people who've been painting a while and encourage them to paint along with us. Last week we worked on our first fire of our cherries, and this is how my first fire came out. And I'm real pleased with the way it came out. I know it's hard for you to see, but we only did the cherries. We didn't do the background. And then when you fire it, of course, all the lines and everything come off. So today we're going to work on the second fire, and this is what the second fire will probably end up looking like after we fire it. I've got the yellow up here, baby blue, and the finishing brown around the bottom, and then we have the light and dark reds and the light and dark greens, and we mixed our own gray, and we put a little brown on the branches. So this is the same palette, basic palette, that I have available on my website, the paints, if you wanted to purchase them. The palette that we're using has these colors. Basically, if you're new to China painting, you want a light and a dark of everything. So this is mixing in yellow brown, a light and a dark yellow. We have a moss and a warm brown green, a baby blue and a Copenhagen blue, an ivory, and either a rich brown or a finishing brown. Now, pompadour and blood red is the darker color. For the violet and the deep royal violet, the royal violet is the darker color. And then at the bottom I have black and white. So that's what we're actually going to be starting with as far as colors. If you see the word easy on either my YouTube or my Facebook channel, it means that those are workshops and tutorials that you can go to, that if you're a beginner, you should be able to do those. Now, if the colors don't match what you have on your palette, try to find the closest colors that you can. But for the most part, those should be things that you should be able to do. I'm going into my mixing yellow, side loading, and I'm going to start by putting the light in on this piece. Now, I've decided that the light is coming from this direction, and I'm just going to tilt this up just a tad. There we go. And so I'm going to be putting the light in the closest to this leaf here. And you may not be able to see mixing yellow. It's kind of a difficult color to see on a video, but I'm just putting it in here. Can you see what I'm doing? I don't know if you can or not. I can also turn this down a little so it's not quite so hot. I'm not sure that helps, but we'll see. If it doesn't, I'll turn it back up. And I'm just putting the yellow in there, but you don't want it to stop at this leaf. You want it to go a little bit beyond the leaf because it's behind the leaf, and you also don't want a line to form of color. Now, you also, because of the stick being here, you kind of want to go below the stick too to add a little more of the yellow, just so that you break it up a little bit. You can go right over the leaves, you can go right over the stem. You can always wipe those out if you don't like them. So that would be what I would start with first. I'm going to turn it this way and pull a little bit. You pull the color out until it's fairly even. And that's all the yellow I'm going to put on right now. Just enough to suggest where the light is. And then I'm going into my baby blue, side loading again. And I'm going to start up in here and add baby blue. And I know it's kind of light and hard to see sometimes, but I think you'll have good luck with it. The more we get on the plate, I think the more you'll see. I try to take and go all the way around the top edge just to kind of frame the piece, even though I don't really need the blue up there, but you can see I did a little blue up there. And then I'm going to turn the piece. You always paint away from yourself and or paint towards yourself, I'm sorry, and pull the color to the edge of the piece. Now this is a tea tile that we're working on. So I'm putting baby blue here, and I'm bringing a little down into this area. And I guess I'm just going to have to paint a little darker than I have. So let me do this, and then I will bring it up so you can see. Now there's kind of a line here. So I'm going to press my brush on my paper towel, and I'm going to just start pulling that line out a little. But that's what I've done so far. I put in my yellow, I've added my blue. I'm going to break the line where the branch cuts through and bring a little blue down in here too. This is baby blue that I'm using for the background initially. And I'll bring a little blue over here. Now, if you paint over things, don't worry about it, because when you add your other color, you can either go back and clean it off with a little bit of turpentine on your brush, or you can just blend the color in if it turns out it's a color you like in that spot. Okay, and then I'm going to come up in this area, up over here, and put some blue up in there too. And the way I'm doing the blue, I'm doing what we call feathering, where you go back and forth, making kind of like an X. Then I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to feather these colors so that there are no lines. And I also want the blue to come right out to the edge of the piece, out to this edge out here, because it is a tea tile. And if you don't paint right to the edge, a lot of times you regret it, because then you have to go back and just paint out to the edge, which is kind of a pain. So now you can see we're getting the blue. I've only come up to the stem over here, so I'm going to want to add a little more down below the stem, because otherwise you see that obvious line there. Okay. There we go. And I've got my blues put in. Now I'm going to start mixing my blue with a little bit of finishing brown. Finishing brown, you say? And that's going to be down at the bottom of this piece, I think. And maybe we're in some of the shadows here. Finishing brown is kind of a gray brown. The closest thing that I have to it is probably a warm brown gray, at least the finishing brown that I have. I'm going to put it on a little heavy here, and you can see how brown, it's really kind of an odd color, kind of a brown gray, but it's pretty, and I think it will do well on this particular piece. So I know I'm painting over the branches and I'm painting over the things, but I want my background to be on there and be nice and smooth. And so I think this is a good way to do it. Okay, now I'm just starting, I'm kind of going back and forth, I know, but it's because I try to work where I can work the easiest. And I'm trying to avoid the cherries and the leaves, but eventually I will get to them. If you stop at this point, you're going to leave a line that when you come back to paint, your paint will have set up a little if you're using a semi-drying medium. And so you don't really want to leave a line. If you've started working on the background, it's best to go kind of around and get as much of it done as you can on a small piece like this. On a big piece, you have to take your time and do it. But on a small piece like this, if you can go through and just kind of finish the background. You don't have to finish it, but at least get the color laid in, just so that you don't get those horrible lines, because then you end up practically going through the whole piece twice. And I don't know if you've had that happen, but it'll set up, it'll dry, because you're using a very dry brush on the background. You get as much of the oil out as you can. And then you start moving the paint around, and by golly, that paint has dried up in one spot or so, and it won't move for you, and then it leaves a line, and you're not a happy camper. I'm just going to finish this little bit down here, trying to get this brown to cooperate with me. And you see, I changed the direction of the piece depending on what I'm doing. And this is for a beginner, so you wouldn't put the background on the first coat. You would probably put it on the second coat. Then I'm going to look, I want a little more brown up in here. There we go. Already it's setting up on me. So I've kind of gone over everything. I have a background on. And then I'm going to kind of stop at this point for a minute and just show you what I've done. I know it looks a little odd. And I'm going to wipe off where some of this color has come out there. But this is what I've done so far. I put in my blue, I put in my brown. I tried to keep it as nice and smooth as I can. And I think for the most part it's fine. You can go back in and play with it if you need to. And now we're going to work on the leaves. A full load of your lightest green, which is the moss, and a side load of the warm brown green. And we're going to decide where to put the depth. Now, I think I want a little at the base of these leaves. So I'm coming towards the base. I'm going to stop at the middle. And then I'm going to pull away from the base and come out to the edge. I'm going to add a tad of brown in it. Flip my plate and come along this side here. That was the turnover that we had on that leaf. And if you do it right, you make the turnover a lot more pronounced, and just kind of play with that, fold it out, pull it out a little bit. Okay. And then I know on what you're watching, you really can't see the edge of this leaf. So I'm just going to go along the edge of the leaf so you can see it. And I'm using a full load of green on this, but I'm just lightly doing the top of it. So we have a nice fold over there. Okay, I'm doing the same thing here with the going down the center, down this side a little bit. Then I'm going to flip it around, and I'm just going to come out on the edge. I add a little brown here. Okay. Now, this leaf here goes under that stem, but this leaf does not. So we're going to do the other two leaves real quick. I'm going to come up to the stem. We're doing the same thing, a full load of the moss green and a partial side load of the warm brown green, and I'm adding just a dab of brown to it to give me that real deep color that I want there along the side of that leaf, because this one is under this one. And then I'm just going to add a little to the end here and put in the veins, because I kind of lost the veins. When you add a vein, for me anyway, I just touch them and they appear. Poof! Can you see the little veins there? I think you can. I'm going to add the moss green, the brown green, but I'm going to add a touch of blue because we have the blue in the background. This leaf is going to be on top, so I might as well bring a little blue in. Oh, can't really tell there. I'm coming along the center vein. I just think it's a good way to do it. I'll get a little more blue in there because I really do want the blue to show. No, blue does not want to show. Okay, I want a little blue right in here. Now, if I had a bigger palette of color, I could add my colors no problem. So I went through the middle of the leaf up in here. And now I'm coming down the edge to the very end. And I'm just sort of defining the outside of the leaf. Up here, I think I'm going to have to add a little more depth. Oh, you know what? I think that's the background there. Yep, that's a little piece of background back there. So let me just pull that out. That should be blue, not green. Okay, there we go. That makes more sense. So there's what we have as far as the leaves. Now I have one more leaf here I want to do. You can mix and match your colors in your leaves as much as you want to. I'm doing full load of moss and a side load of yellow, and I'm going to do this leaf. Go right up the center of the vein. Come right back down the center of the vein. And it's not quite dark enough, so I am going to have to go into the darker green. And I'm just going to come down the edge here. And I'm going to add a little blue to that because I do like the blue. And you see, I'm just adding in my little stems, my veins, I mean. There we go. Okay. Alrighty. Let's go back and tackle this branch. It cuts right through this section and through this section. Because I'm using a beginner palette, I really don't have any gray, and I need a gray, so I'm going to make a gray. I mixed my white and my black, and I'm just going to put it through the middle here. And I'm just taking the white and the black on my brush, and I'm sort of sketching it through. I'm using a straight stroke with just the top of my brush just to get it where I want it to be. And I'm leaving a little blue on the branches because I kind of like the little bit of blue that got on the branches here, sort of reflecting the background. And then I'm going to come down this way. Now this one you can hardly see, it's back here. There's a branch right there. And that branch comes through to here. And I'm going to turn it so that I go each direction and I'm able to add a little bit of that black on each direction. I might stay that way for down here. You see what I've done so far? Right here is where I was adding the black in each direction. And I'll go down here and finish it off. Okay, so I've got the gray on there. And then I'm going to add a little brown, but I'm going to do that with a pen or a liner. So I think right now I'm going to go to my cherries and get those done. So with the beginning palette like this, I'm going to full load with Pomp, but a very light full load. And let me show you what I mean by that. It's that light. This is my Pomp. I go in like almost like I'm side loading, and then I take the color that comes off here, and that's what I'm full loading with. Then I'll go into the blood red with the side of my brush and get the darker color, because I want that Pomp not to be too overwhelming. Okay, I'm going to start with my main cherry, and I'm just coming around now. I think the secret with a cherry, because it's a circle, is don't overthink the circle. Just do it. Just go around and do it. You can take short strokes to do it, C strokes, but just go around and do it. And you'll get a basic cherry in there, a basic color in there. And then you can kind of play with it a little. You can wipe a little off your brush and pull it where you want it. You're also going to want a highlight on that cherry. And you can either do that with your brush and clean it off really well, or you can take a wedge eraser or use the side that's not a wedge, which is kind of what I prefer to do, and just pull the color into there, the highlight, and then you can smooth it at the bottom. And that gives you a highlight on that cherry. Now we're going to go back, do another light full load with the pomp, dark with the blood red, and we're going to do, now this is in the shadow of this, so we're going to put the shadow in, then pull it around. Then I'm going to come around to this side. I don't want to pull it all the way around because it's not going to work for me. And I'm going to reload my brush and put the dark in on this side. And there you see how I have it. I'm going to pull a little up there. I'm going to pat off what's on my brush and go back and smooth it. And then I'm going to put my little highlight in, and my highlight is right in here. And you know what? My highlight is more yellow than it is a color. Now I'll pull the cherry back. So that's the highlight I have there. And then at the bottom, pompadour, very lightly with the side load of blood. You can even add a titch of finishing brown to this and put it down here, because this cherry is under the other two. You're going to do it there. You're going to do a little bit here. And then you're going to do the base with the blood red and a little bit of that brown. Oops, lost my highlight. I will get my highlight back. Put my highlight back in where I want it. And then I will pull it back out. Okay. I have a cherry over on the other side, and we're going to do that too. We're going to take and we're going to use the pompadour, a little bit of the blood red, and we're just going to, this one up here, we're just going to go under the leaf. And then we're going to go around the base. Wipe off the color, and then come back and smooth it out. He's got a little more red than a little more highlight than I need on him, so we'll get rid of a little of the highlight there. I'm going to have to make it a little darker. You can put the color on in layers. You don't have to put the color on all at once. If you're afraid you're going to go too dark, apply it a little at a time. Now up here, I'm going to clean my brush really well. I want to just edge out the edge of that cherry up here. Then I'll put a little oil on it and I'll mix it again, but I just didn't want it to be so just so you can kind of see where there's a difference between them. Oops, let's see. This one's not cooperating with me the way I want it to there. That's better. Just so that they lift a little bit from each other. And then you have the final two over here. And you have these two leaves yet to do. I'm going to leave that right now, and let's talk about the rest of the stem. I'm going to mix the paint for the stem. I'm going to use my palette knife, take some of the finishing brown. I'm going to use my Easy Flow and just add a little bit of that. Maybe a little more paint there. You want it to be drippy. We've talked about that before. You want the paint to be the kind that'll kind of drip. So that's what I've got. It just drips off the end of your palette knife when you mix it. And I'm going to take and put the paint on my pen. And then I'm going to go in, I'm just going to add some texture and definition to my cherry branches. And I'm using the pen because I don't want it to get out of control. I want it to mix in and get, you know, stay. Can you see what I did there? Cherry branches are kind of odd. They're gray in the middle. They're dark on the outside. They've got a lot of little bumps on them. And they've got like almost like striations that go through the center of them that separate them almost like segments. So you kind of have to play with them. They're nice smooth branches. I'll show you here on you see how smooth her branches are down in here? There's not much bark on them per se. It's just a nice smooth bark if there is. I gotta get a little more brown in here. There we go. And I'm just outlining my branches, adding a couple little tickies, a couple little branches that go up, a couple little branches that come down. And that's kind of what you want to do when you're doing the branches. You just want to do a little I'm almost done with my branches. And you keep going back and adding more and more texture to them until you get them exactly the way you want them. Okay. So I'm just going to finish out my other two leaves in my cherry. I'm going to do my edges the way I think I want to do them, which is this out here. I think I'm going to do with the, I'll show you what the brown will look like. I think it'll be pretty out there. I suppose I could do it with the blue too. If I like the blue, I could do it with the blue. There's the blue. Oh, you can't really see the blue, can you? Here, let me make it really dark. There, that's the blue. So you could do it with any color that you wanted on the edge. You're going to finish your cherries. These two guys here, you're going to do your little divot in the center here. And then you're going to take a liner. And your moss green, and you're going to make sure you can see your You want to be able to see your stems. And you might want to take a pen to those and do a little bit of the dark on one side of the stem to help the stems as well. And you're going to do the same thing with your leaves. You're going to make sure your leaves have stems. Oops, that one's a little heavy. So you're going to go back and make sure your leaves have stems. And if you put something on too heavy, just touch it, get it off of there, and then put it on the way you want it. And there's a little stem here, and there's a little stem here. There's a little stem here, here. And then we're going to finish those two leaves at the bottom and these two cherries. So that gives you an idea of how you're going to finish your last part of this. You can go around, do your cherry. Oop. These can be a little lighter. They're in the background. And then your leaves. Now see, if I had my blue-green, I would probably use my blue-green on these leaves because I do like my blue-green. I'm going to get rid of this paint because all I'm doing is wiping my hand in it. And right here, this is my other leaf. And I'm just going to come down the center of it, come down this side of it. We're going to smooth it out to the very bottom. Okay, so that gives you an idea. Oops, turn it this way. That gives you an idea. This is the second coat. The first coat had no background. Now we have a background. I'm going to go back. I'm going to use my pen. I'm going to put a little detail on my leaves, more detail on my stem, and I might even finish the edge here with a color. And then hopefully by next week it'll look more like this, and we can finish it off. So thanks for watching. Appreciate you being here. Next week we'll finish our cherries so that you can have a final product. Hi, I hope you enjoyed the program, and I hope that you will watch future programs by liking and subscribing to my page. If you do subscribe, I would really appreciate it so that other people who have a similar interest will be able to see more of this kind of programming. I have studies available at my website along with products. If you're interested in finding out more about those, please look at the description box below. Thank you.